It was the night my name became a joke that I understood the molten power of rage. Not the loud, fiery sort that explodes and curls edges of paper. This was a quieter burn, winding tight in my gut as I lay on the bed, phone still glowing with the endless looped video of myself tripping over a tripod leg, microphone falling to the ground, voice cracking as I tried to introduce the makeshift documentary I'd worked on for 3 weeks. Oi, pessoal, eu sou o Leo, e hoje vamos falar sobre Crash. My face stretched in panic, and the camera, handled by my little cousin, shook so badly you could barely see me on the screen. He'd uploaded it online laughing. Someone added circus music. Another clipped my high-pitched "Camarada" like I was a squealing parrot. In Rio, that's enough for a crowd in the plaza to recognize you, for boys to make faces when you pass, for aunts to text your mother with condolences or polite derision. At home in our apartment above the pastel bakery, my mother glanced at me over the kitchen table. "You should have studied law," she murmured, stirring sugar into her chamate. My brother, Renan, showed me a clip on his phone and smirked. "You know, you could have actually been good at futebol, Leo," he said, tapping his knuckles against the chipped mug. "Not this. What is it? Amador YouTube coisa?" I wanted to cry, but I learned early the best tears are hidden in the shower, drowned by the spray and the rumble of buses outside. Instead, I watched the city through the window. Santa Teresa's crowded rooftops, laundry shivering on lines, the way night pressed hard against the steep hills. My dreams felt like those stacked houses, shaky foundations, clinging for a view nobody else valued. My mother saw the look on my face, that mixture of stubbornness and humiliation. "Você é teimoso. You can't fix a city with a camera, meu filho." But I wanted to try. Not to fix it maybe, but to really point at the parts nobody filmed, where people built lives from fragments, and nobody told their story unless it fit a headline. The next morning, I walked to the Escola Técnico, where I worked part-time cleaning classrooms and fixing broken lights. The schoolyard reeked faintly of urine and dust. It didn't matter. What mattered was the little blue camera in my backpack, a second-hand thing with lens fog, and my notebook. At break, I scribbled ideas, shot lists, interview questions, scenes I could stitch together. But every corridor echoed. "Hey, cineasta!" a group called as I passed. One flicked his hand, mimicking a lens zoom. A teacher, Senor Vargas, leaned from the staff room and made a sound more exasperated than amused. "Talvez dia, Leo. É hobby saudável, pelo menos." Nobody expected me to stop chasing this dream. They expected me to give up. At night, I lay on the thin mattress, listening to the city's pulse outside, wondering if stubbornness was really a virtue. I kept thinking about my city, samba leaking through the cracks in the old walls, the rattle of cable cars over Lapa's arches. I burned with humiliation, then steadied myself. I would work quietly, harder. I would do it differently. I started with borrowed equipment. My friend Camila's phone, Dino's battered microphone, gaffer tape at the base. We met after hours in the crumbling alley by Pedra do Sal, shooting at odd angles to catch snatches of conversation. A woman living above the samba bar, 3 jobs, always laughing. An elderly shoemaker who hadn't left his block in 20 years, his voice brittle as old paper. I gave them space. Instead of talking over them, I let silence build. Their stories spilled out, messy, not well lit, sometimes rambling. I filmed more, learned to edit on ancient software in my friend's cousin's internet cafe, giving up meals to afford the hourly rate. The buzzy old PCs crashed often. I learned patience rage pressed down, channeled into precision, a steadying of hands rather than fists. Every time I showed my mother, She'd tilt her head. Interesting, Filio. But people want stories with heroes, big moments, no? But life isn't like that, I argued. But maybe that's why nobody watches. She wasn't cruel, only practical. Her life was hard work, every breath a calculation. She worried I'd be broken by disappointment. A year passed. I saved enough to buy an old laptop with broken hinges. I filmed, edited, learned patterns of light and sound. My work became less clumsy, less like someone shouting into a void. I uploaded 5 short documentaries, watched them gather dust online. 100 views. The odd parabangs from a stranger. Mostly silence. That's when my uncle called. We have a spot on the market stall next month. You can help your cousin. It wasn't a request. I went, carrying a camera just in case. The stall overlooked the square where they'd filmed carnival queens for news reports. Now, the queen was my cousin Julia's homemade jewelry. I filmed her stringing beads, the gold flecks catching the afternoon sun, her laughter mixing with city noise. Spontaneously, I began to record others nearby. A green-eyed boy balancing on crates, an old man selling spices, his hands steady as he measured small scoops. I spent 2 days at the market, letting stories unfurl. Back home, I threw it all together. This time I made it personal, added my own voice, explaining what I saw, what I loved, and what I feared losing if the city changed too fast. My accent leaked through, betraying nerves at every turn. But I didn't care. I called it No So Rio, Our Rio. When I uploaded it, I expected nothing. I went to help clean the bakery, scrubbed flour from the tiles. The next morning, my phone vibrated nearly off my nightstand. Camila wrote, "It's everywhere. G1 picked it up. They put your name with it, Leo." When I checked, notifications flooded in. "Beautiful. You made me miss home. I know that old guy. He's my father." A TV reporter called, asked if she could interview me for a daytime program about what young people were doing in Rio's neighborhoods. I said yes, my voice shaky. My family didn't celebrate. They stared at me across the breakfast table, toast in hand, as if waiting for the next inevitable humiliation. My brother was coolly curious. "So they liked it? How much money you get for that?" My mother wouldn't look up, afraid to seem invested. The anger never let go. I just wore it differently, turned it into energy. I filmed at every chance, piecing together stories about the forgotten edges of the city. Favelas pressed so close to glass apartments you could see the contrast from the sky. But nobody ever filmed the view from inside the shacks. I tried. Over the next 2 years, my work made small rounds. At festivals, sometimes just a classroom of teenagers, sometimes a proper audience with journalists and politicians on folding chairs. Each time, I stood by the screen, palms damp, half expecting laughter, the echo of circus music. Instead, people listened. Sometimes afterward, they shook my hand, looked at me with something like respect. But I never forgot the nights hunched over cheap equipment and the sound of my brother showing his friends that first viral disaster in our living room, all of them in tears from laughing. In the 5th year, something shifted. An international network humble, but with reach asked for proposals about Latin American cities. They wanted something honest, tough but real. I submitted Pedra Miuda, a film about a wall painter whose life collapsed after an eviction and who'd rebuilt a small world with his art. The network liked it, funded me a little. I worked day and night, battered by self-doubt but relentless. It premiered at a small theater in Flamengo. I wore borrowed clothes, ironed them twice. The lights dimmed, my voice opened the story. Rio is a city built from persistence. My heart thudded in my ears. Afterward, applause filled my head, so loud I barely heard the words when the producer hugged me. I forced myself not to weep, shook hands, smiled for pictures I hated. My mother's first words were, "It was good, but you shouldn't wear a blue shirt with those shoes next time." Still, at home, she hugged me. I felt her chest shake, pride or relief. I couldn't tell. A year later, it was big. A series sold to streamers. Suddenly, my name was in articles. Leandro Soares, the voice of Forgotten Rio. People interviewed me in English. Money came. Not much, but enough to give my family a better apartment. Enough to walk into a restaurant and buy pastries for everyone, not just myself. I left for work in São Paulo, then Buenos Aires. I came back off and on, always missing the weight of Rio's air, thick with salt and exhaust. I didn't see my family as often, but I sent money, called every few days. Even my brother, now working in logistics, started to mention my projects to friends, quietly proud. But the real return waited farther off, gathering like a storm. My old neighborhood centennial party, our new apartment was farther up, but I wore an old shirt, wanting to feel like myself. I walked down the steep lanes, past the tile shop, the bus depot, the bakery that no longer belonged to us. I tried not to think about expectations or old grievances, a pointless hope. My mother was already there, bustling with the churchwomen. My brother arrived behind me, greeted with handshakes and backslaps. In the square, they'd rigged a low stage. Fairy lights tangled above orange tables, clustered beneath the pungent scent of barbecue. Flutes and drums marked the rhythm of the gathering. Faces turned. Some smiled, some paused, as if waiting to see what joke I'd become. My uncle, now with silver hair and slower feet, gripped my hand. "Filmmaker? Now you're famous, hey?" Someone, a cousin's friend, called loudly to the group. "Remember when Leo filmed that thing and nearly broke his nose? Still got the video." Laughter rippled. I braced, the old burn in my chest, but forced a grin. The committee chair,